consider me to be limited and unfortunate. I would simply say that I have heard these stories, many of these stories, for years, and I have not heard a new type of story in a long time. I have investigated every type of miracle story, and I have yet to find anything appearing to be supernaturally of God." Unquote. Well, how's that for honesty that is rarely displayed by a fundamentalist? The most common defense of biblical miracles, or miracles in general for that matter, is stated on page 27 in a book entitled "A Defense of Biblical Infallibility" by Clark Pinnock, who states, quote, "Empirical science cannot contest the validity of a miracle for the simple reason that the event cannot be repeated for experiment today. The evidence for a miracle, as for any historical event, is the testimony of those who witnessed it. Science, which denies the possibility of miracles, is both unbiblical and unhistorical." Unquote. Pinnock fails to realize that the burden of proof lies on he who alleges. Those who do not accept the existence of miracles are under no obligation to prove anything, while those who affirm their existence must prove everything. The burden of proof lies on he who alleges. That's fundamental to all rational thought. And proof is something believers in miracles just can't provide. Scientists aren't denying the existence of miracles. They are just saying that those who believe in them aren't proving they exist. And because they aren't being demonstrated, they aren't factored into scientific calculations. Miracles can't be duplicated, and tangible evidence for their existence is not forthcoming. The only thing defenders of miracles can produce is the testimony of witnesses claiming to have encountered a supernatural event. Of course, witnesses alone to a unique event are not sufficient, because that would mean, if that were true, any crackpot, wild-eyed, crazy screwball idea or event really happened simply because somebody said it did. If a group of people claimed to have seen Elvis Presley recently, that would have to be true until skeptics proved otherwise. Those who say Jesus rose from the grave must substantiate their belief, while those who believe otherwise are under no obligation to prove the contrary. The Achilles heel for belief in miracles is also the death blow for belief in the supernatural in general. Again, my main phrase: the burden of proof lies on he who alleges, not others. And because the existence of the supernatural in general can no more be demonstrated than the existence of miracles in particular, both will remain in the realm of imagination and fantasy. As Thomas Paine said on page 81 of volume 9 of his works, quote, "All the tales of miracles with which the Old and New Testament are filled are fit only for impostors to preach and fools to believe." Unquote. And the philosopher David Hume was on the mark when he said, quote, "The Christian religion was not only at first attended with miracles, but even to this day cannot be believed without one." Unquote. One of the most prevalent and critical of all mistakes made by believers in miracles is that they tend to look upon alleged supernatural events as signs of a divine messenger, a divine message, or a higher power. Believers in alleged miracles often view them as evidence of a superior strength or force that should be taken into account. This point is made many times by biblical apologists. On page 5 in the book entitled Answering Christianity's Most Troubling Questions, Volume 1, apologist Richard Sisson says, quote, "There are several ways God has set the Bible apart from all spurious religious literature." Spurious meaning false or untrue. First, the human authors of Scripture did not simply share opinions. They claimed to be God's spokesmen, and they substantiated their claims with mighty deeds. Those mighty deeds, miracles in many cases, became a significant credential. And he cites Acts 2:22, 2:43, and 5:12 to prove his case. Unquote. On page 75, in Answers to Tough Questions, another book, apologists McDowell and Stewart say, quote, "The miracles of Jesus were meant to be objective signs to the people that he was the promised Messiah, since one of the credentials of the Messiah would be signs and miracles." Unquote. On page 257 in the book entitled Basic Theology, a Dallas Theological Seminary professor by the name of Charles Ryrie says, quote, "By the miracles which verified to the people of his day that Jesus was a true prophet." Unquote. And on page 66 in the book entitled Dr. Rice, Here is My Question, apologist John R. Rice said, quote, "Certainly the miracles prove that Jesus came from God." Unquote. In reality, miracles do nothing of the sort, because the Bible itself says that they are not to be taken as signs of deity, godliness, the messiahship, or prophetic capabilities.